Hey, folks, this is Rob Potter in Mount Shasta, California. On this, um, let's see, I think it's what day is it? It's today. I'm sorry, it's the
It's the
9th,
9th of May.
the 9th of May. Sorry, time flies. I'm with a gentleman many of you know who have followed me. I consider him a dear friend, a mentor, a guide, who was very brave coming forward with the information of the reptilians back when no one was talking about it. I'd heard about it in 1978 and 1982. Uh, uh, the extraterrestrial Pleiadians sent me a teacher that taught me a lot about that. And it wasn't until I started reading Alex Collier in 1994 and 95 that I realized the depth of what was going on. And so I'd like you to know that I've known Alex. I met him, I think, in 2009 during the H1N1 and through Len Horowitz, and spent a couple days. And he's been very kind in mentoring me and talking with me and meeting with me throughout the years. And he's come to my conferences. And I'm very honored to introduce you to one of the senior ambassadors, Alex Collier. Once again, thank you for coming on my show today, Alex.
Back at you, Rob. I appreciate you saying I've been a mentor to you. That goes both ways. That really does. I mean, there are times I've reached what would appear to be the end of my rope, and I would call you and say, dude, I need to talk. And I need to, release some gas and blow a gasket, with a friend who clearly gets what's going on and understands. And you've always been there, so it goes both ways. And you've been a really good friend as well. And Rob, like not too many others, you have been very steady in putting out the word and putting on your conferences, and you pick some of the most beautiful places on the planet to hold them. I mean, Shasta is just like, wow, there's just no place like it. There really isn't. And the people that you have there, the people that assist you with the conference, they're always top notch. They're always really, really the best. And it's been an honor and a privilege to be your friend and to work with you, on enlightening humanity.
Well, thank you so very much. I mean, I remember I called you and I said, Alex, you got to come. He says, oh, I haven't had contacts in years. And I said, no, people want to hear from you. And I got you to come out. And I'm really glad you came out. And then I think it was in 2015, 15, I said, you said, oh, and I said, you people want to hear from you. It's not whether you've had late contacts or information. And I'm so glad that you started this podcast with JP and are definitely back in the game, even if it's from the comfort of your forest retreat there. So,
I hide away, yes.
yeah. So, we're just talking, brother. I remember years ago you told me, um, and I love you so much, man, because you've been through so much. I remember you were telling me that you got a call from someone in the CIA that threatened your life because you had to take down that location of 109 bases. And you confided in me that you had a contact at Langley, and he went in and talked to Frank Carlucci and said the threat is credible. Ladies and gentlemen, his life has been defamed, demoted, disrupted, his life threatened. He wouldn't even travel on planes for many years. So,
I
Alex,
still don't like to fly.
you've been like the tip of the spear, and you've taken a lot of heat, and you've been forged into a fine instrument of truth. And so it's an honor to have you here. I'd like to, folks, real quickly, I'm going to share my screen here, and we're going to get in with Alex. We're going to talk a little bit about the current situation where he sees we're standing here today, and I might, offer some things, and then we're going to go into the positive message. And actually, we're going to focus a little bit on the transformation of the human thinking and the paradigm shift that people are going to have to make, because the changes are going to come hard and fast. But in the meantime, um, I want to, I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to pull up, and where'd it go? My Mount Shasta Summer Conference, which is coming up. And we'll get this to you right now. So there's my, are we sharing? Can we see? There it is. So this is my homepage, folks. So if we go back or we go forward here, I'm just going to show you. So the Mount Shasta Summer Conference, I just did a big email update. The schedule is up. Here it is. And I'm just going to mention, folks, if you want to go to this, you click on this link or the next one. I'm just going to take you to the page real quick. And I want you to look at this on a computer. You can't see it on a phone because all the information is here. And it's got, we're kind of out of the positions to fill. We now have 225 people. This includes speakers, volunteers, guests, and of course, the public. And I'm so honored and grateful for everyone who's come and supported Alex and me. Mount Shasta, you know, I choose a great location. This is a major vortex here. This is one of the major places to see. So the volunteers, unless you're a sound PowerPoint technician, we're pretty much full here. We do have, the schedule is up. We have workshops with Victoria Liljenquist, amazing woman with all kinds of stuff. So if you want to come, you look where to stay. This is a link with every place in town. Okay, so that's enough of that. I'm going to stop the screen share. So if you're interested, we have a great lineup. You can see their bios and their images and everything to say. So all the information is here. And there's a new blog post on my website. So that does that for the little talk about promo. So Mr. Collier, journeyman of contactees, and I know he's had many contacts that he doesn't talk about, but I think everyone really loves you because you're down to earth, you're not about money, and you just deliver what you know, and you have a very wise perspective. If you could, would you like to just share with us what you see the world situation today? Of course, there's the distraction of the media, but why don't you share what you feel is going on, where we're at moving forward?
Well, that's a tall order in a way. I will break it down. I'll get the crayons out, you know,
Okay, and I'll
so
take
everybody understands. Um, as I see it today, the 9th of May, 2023, we are very, very close to dramatic changes and shifts, starting with the financial system, the global financial system. There's no way that that's not going to happen, because that is what's fueling the dark side, and it has been fueling the dark side. So they're going to be taking that down. Now, when I refer to the dark side, I am referring to the Khazarian Mafia, the Orion Group, what's left of them, the Deep State, etc. Okay, so instead of having to mention all of them at once, when I say the dark side, that's who I'm referring to. And then the white hats, the alliance, would be those who are championing and defending humanity on all levels. And many of those people are us, all of us, that are awake and doing everything we can to assist others, like Rob. Rob would be considered a white hat. So we're going through a tremendous shift. And I think one of the toughest things for humanity as a whole is that for generations we lived in this system, this matrix, which essentially disempowered us, and it gave us a sense of false assurance about everything because we were put into a system that was very consistent, very methodical, without realizing that we were being led down a road into slavery and poverty. And at the same time, they were censoring our creativity. Those that came up with incredible devices, technology, if it wasn't something that they could keep themselves, the dark side, and profit from and slave the rest of humanity with, it would never go anywhere. If it was free energy and they couldn't charge for it, that technology would never get anywhere. In fact, those people would usually be removed from the equation. And what I mean by that is that they were assassinated, the inventors. It's that way all across the board. It's been that way all across the board. And it was done very slow, very methodical. So a lot of folks just simply didn't see it. 30 years ago, 35 years ago, 50 years ago, there were people who saw this coming. They understood because they knew people who were in the meetings, who were in the discussion, the planning stages of taking humanity down this road to the Agenda 21, the Agenda 2030, and to Agenda 2050. And all those roads led to 500 million people living on the planet. That's it. Everyone else was going to be removed. And their reason for that, they say, is because of climate change and this and that. What's happening with the disclosure of not only space, other life forms all around us, um, is the fact that if you really genuinely look at the science, the the climatic changes that we have been experiencing have been a manipulation through technology, primarily very specific satellites and the HARP technology. That's what's been manipulating the weather. And of course, they don't tell you that, but what they will do is to say, look, the climate's out of control, the Earth's completely out of balance. Well, it's them unbalancing the planet. It wasn't humanity. If humanity was the problem, the Earth would have rolled herself and it would have been over with. But that's not what she's done. In fact, she is expanding and getting larger to accommodate a larger population. So, there's a lot of different ways to look at this. And each one of you individually needs to do the work, to do the research that you can. But even more importantly is you have to go inside and you have to see what your intuition tells you, how it feels when you hear some of this information. What is your first response? That's usually the true response. It's what you think before the ego kicks in and says, no, 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 that can't be right. Because the body doesn't lie. The body does not lie. So you want to trust your intuition. And this goes for men as well, especially for men now. Women have always been using their intuition, but men haven't. Um, we have been convinced that it's something other than something we truly need as a guidance, as a barometer, as a compass. And it's equally as important for men as it ever has been for women. I think the future looks incredibly bright. The challenge is for humanity to be confronted with the fact that almost everything they've been taught is a lie, including history. It's all been a lie. And I know you're like, well, how could that be? Well, you're about to find out. You really are. Um, and when those walls collapse and you realize it's all been a lie, what you want to do is you want to contact your favorite conspiracy theorist, like Rob Potter, okay, and say, yo, Rob, what's up? Tell me what's happening here. I can't make heads or tails of this. And he
I,
will tell you, well, I can't either, but let's talk about it.
Right. Well, you said some things here, and I want to reinforce what he said, and I think he made a very good point. And this is what I've been telling people is that this situation on Earth goes back many hundreds of thousands of years. Mankind is going to wake up to the truth of who we are as spiritual beings, about the creation of these avatar bodies and the descent of the spirit of God and the innate nature of consciousness and who we are. This has all been manipulated. And as Alex Collier said years ago, these beings from these higher dimensions live a very long time. So they take their time when they take over a planet. It's done by genetic manipulation. I'd like to say, I can explain a little bit about the history of the transhumanist agenda. It's the and how these bad guys got control. The Earth actually, 16,000 years ago, was heading towards the final flood and some other things going on here, and a group uh, was invited in, um, and these were to end some battles that were going on along the Earth. And these, of course, were some reptilians, and unfortunately, certain aspects of the interdimensional nature of the administration of this earth beings fell. And the earth was actually been owned by them for 16,000 years. And the light forces, the guardians, primarily the Venusians and the Pleiadians, have been a lot more active later, and many others have been holding that at bay. They've been working behind the scenes as the bad guys have been working behind the scenes. And in 2012, this contract of 16,000 years ended. And successively now, since 2012 till now, many different galactic agreements and covenants that allowed these, the Venusians call them interlopers, intruders, who are promoting a transhumanist genetic altering agenda. And so they have a group of step downs in terms of their hybridization. They lived inside the earth, and some of them in a higher dimension. And they had created various bloodlines of traders of their bloodlines, and they're called the parents. And then they had the coven leaders, and they come down to the elite families that we know about. Most of them, the higher ones, we don't even know their names. Some of the more famous ones would be the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, and they have counterparts throughout the world. And you see the gargoyles on the Middle Ages and the dragons, and all this stuff was really true. The activities that they do are very heinous, and Alex has talked about it. And this is what's very freaky for most people, that humans would be considered food and things like this. So that is unraveling now. And the light forces have taken control behind the scenes and have been removing some of the bad guys here. And you talked about the financial system. So I'm not going to go too deep into this, but the idea of a just and equitable financial system based on prosperity and abundance as opposed to scarcity and lack is going to take place. Right now, because of the nature of the system that they created, money has been a linchpin. It's the root of all evil, so to speak. But money represents energy. And they've stolen and siphoned our energy, not only in money, but in opening up portals through the HARP program and other things to bring in lower astral entities and other groups to support the suppression of the human consciousness energy field, because it's all about our frequency and raising our awareness. They do this by control of the media and giving you bad news, and you don't even think about it, but you're thinking about fear and negative things. So the global restoration plan, and I believe, and I believe that the woman in charge is prophesied in the Bible is a woman who stands on the sun with a crown of moon and stars. Her name is Kim Gogan. She has a website and a news channel called United Network News. And it's very controversial because many people in the alt news media are talking about what the bad guys are planning. And they think that it's happening with the good guys. The good guys, the real white hats, are sequestered, they're hidden, they're compartmentalized, they don't know each other on the earth. But at the highest levels in the military naval intelligence, they are already preparing for a very swift and hard disclosure. They're psychologically working with humans and people, and they're not going to invade, they're going to just increase their presence. And so this is the plan, is to bring forward the fact that they're here so that all the people who are asleep can wake up. So that's where Alex and I are going to move forward now into this waking up program. He talked about when this happens, how are we going to deal with this? So I believe that the Nasara Jasara, those ideas of a gold-backed currency, are real. The abundance of prosperity is going to come, and people will be able to submit projects. I believe the government is completely broke. Janet Yellen just said it. They're still promoting vaccines. It's crazy. There's a lot of bad things still happening behind the scenes. It's not a rosy picture. In fact, the Venusian said it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. But with your loving awareness and your ability to work with others, we can move forward. So, Alex, we're going to have the problems of the understanding of religion, of the financial system, and changing to a whole new era of awakening. Can you talk about or recommend for people, how we can help our neighbors? Many people are waking up now. They're understanding stuff, but you have such a long history of looking at this and viewing it. Talk about how we're going to get through these changes. What do you see happening? I mean, there's probably going to be some chaos in the streets. I see people polarizing now. The people who are negative are more emboldened now. There's more crime in the streets. At the same time, I'm seeing a great wave of love as these technologies of control and the bad guys' systems are being removed. What do you
Okay.
see the challenge, and how can we move forward in that?
Okay. I need to back up for a minute regarding Kim Gogian. I don't see that situation the way you do. We have a difference of opinion there, and you know that
Yeah,
we have a difference of opinion regarding who she is and what she's about. So having said that, let's just move on.
yeah, okay.
Um, the biggest challenge is that in order to become part of a galactic community, there are things we have to change. And 90% of it is here in our head. You talked about fear. The financial system that we've been using um, is a very old relic of the Orion Wars. And it's a system that works when you can totally isolate a civilization, which is what they did. They were able to isolate us on this planet for quite a long time. And then, what they did was they put in this system where no matter what you did, you would have to struggle to survive and to make ends meet, to eat, to do whatever. You would have to struggle. And along with struggle and along with that, worrying about being able to survive creates stress. It creates anger, creates jealousy. It creates all this negative field, which is baggage that humanity has been carrying generation after generation after generation. All of these are negative spiritual constructs that literally kept us in a space where we would not expand ourselves with unconditional love because we were always put into this state of being afraid, of being fearful, of having to struggle. I remember at one point, Mornay and Faseus had asked me about to explain the monetary system because other star worlds, other star nations don't use a monetary system at all. So I did. I put this thing together, and I laid it all out, and it was over a period of 3 contacts where I laid the whole thing out. And Mornay was very gracious, and he said, "Alex, this was very well done. Thank you very much. I have a better understanding." Visayas, on the other hand, just looked perplexed. And the only thing he said to me was, and it was a question, why do you have to pay to live on a planet you were born on?
Right.
Everything I thought about money, my entire perspective, it all collapsed. Boom. With that one question. Because it had never been put that way. And he's absolutely right. Why do we have to live like this? And it's because this hierarchy wanted to create the system where they could control and manipulate humanity. Turn us on, turn us off, turn us up, turn us down. Anything that they could do, whatever they needed to do to manipulate humanity. This flash financial system that we're coming to, this blockchain quantum system, I have been told by the A's will be our last as a planet, our last financial system before so many years from now or decades from now, that will drop and fall away because humanity will begin to change its perspective on wealth, its perspective on abundance. And it isn't just to hear the knowledge, but you have to experience it as well. And the more you experience it, the more you trust it. The more you trust it, the more you embrace the consciousness of abundance. And that's what all of humanity has to get to, because many of us have struggled. Our grandfathers, our moms and dads, our ancestors, many of them struggled throughout their life. And yet they continue to move forward, having children, having hope, having faith of a better future, of a prosperity, of peace. They did this all along the way. And here we are as well, our generations, doing the exact same thing, hoping, having faith, having children, moving forward, moving humanity forward. It's just that the other pieces have never been there. The only reason that was there is because humanity, in its in its soul, knows these truths to be self-evident. It's just that we don't see it reflected in the world around us because that was always being controlled and manipulated. Whether it was media, whether it was banks, whether it was governments, it was always being controlled and manipulated on the outside around us. So we haven't seen it. So they created all this doubt that we can be self-reliant, that we can create anything that we actually want. They've created all this doubt. And then, the United States caused a lot of problems for the New World Order. The United States was never supposed to happen, regardless of what people think. It was never meant to happen. And when it did, it changed everybody's perspective, its philosophy. We started talking about individual liberties, gun rights, the freedom to choose, religious freedom, all these things. So what they had to do was, they realized that this conflict would tear everything down. So what they did was they backed off, the New World Order, the dark ones, they backed off, let America get a foothold, and then what they did was they attacked it through institutions. And it wasn't until 1871 that the bankers of Europe were actually able to get a hold of the United States and literally turn that ship back into a direction that would lead us to our own destruction. And that's exactly what they've done through assassination, bank failures, wars, just all of it has been a manipulation.
It's
And
go ahead.
And, now we're at this place where there have been enough people who have been on the inside that were like, no way, we're not going to let this go any further. I think a lot of it had to do with the assassination of John Kennedy. And then in 1991, Agenda 21, when the United Nations, 190 nations agreed to depopulate, to genocide humanity from the earth down to a very specific number, that's when everybody was like, okay, this has gone way too far. And they began to push back in a very subtle way and to literally calculatively pit the deep state against itself, turn it on itself so that it would begin to take itself down. And what's that old saying? When your enemy is taking himself out, get out of the way, don't help him. Just let him do it. And that's exactly what you're seeing now. They are taking themselves down because they can't feed off of anything anymore. They can only feed off each other. And that's the thing about the dark side. They have to feed off of something, a host. Well, we're no longer the host, you
I,
see? So the only host is themselves, and that's exactly what they're doing. Rob, I hand it over to you now.
well, I was going to say, I think humanity, we have various mindsets and genetics. J.J. Hurtak talked about having both fallen and divine thought forms from the taken over of the incarnations on the earth. And this is, they've inculcated competition, greed, and a lust for power. This is what the elites of this genetic family bloodline are royals. And they're basically traitors to humanity. They have nothing to offer us. They've put themselves in positions of power. Most people do not realize how evil people can be, despite Pol Pot, the Gulag, um, World War II, the death camps, um,
Now,
Caesar going around taking over the world, um, World War One. I mean, it goes on and on. This has been a feeding frenzy for the reptilians who control the financial system through their proxies on Earth. And the true quantum system, this blockchain that is very advanced, um, um, I'm just going to say it's shifting now. How it's going to happen, I don't want to go into the KG aspect of it, but I think it's important that we recognize that it has to be an inside change within people. And people are going to wake up, and the confusion comes from we're separating ourselves. We separate ourselves between man and woman, black and white, Hindu and Muslim, Christian and Jew, uh, rich and poor, man and woman. And everyone is judging each other. And we have to look towards our brother and see God in him, and to recognize him, and to support him, and to not judge him, and not to be fearful of someone because they're different. They would go, oh, look at those savages. Those Native Americans knew that you can't buy land. They were perplexed when they said, well, we're going to buy this and do that and give you that. And they just railroaded them. So, and of course, the Native Americans are remnants of some Pleiadians that came to the Americas and were living underground, actually, with the ant people that Michael Solomon talks about. Crazy stuff, folks, but you're going to have to expand your level of thinking here. They put these various systems of communism. The Venusians are very much into communal sharing, not into a totalitarian state. They believe in a world trust. We will lose our financial idea of currency, but we need to hold on to that now. We're not going to be able to change into a digital currency. First of all, they don't have the technology to do it. They have a type of AI, a minor supercomputer AI, but it's not the true quantum system. That's a very high level system. So I can say that the Venusians have talked about um, some challenges we're facing. And the most important thing that they say is that, I said this when I met Jill at Dr. Frank Strange's meeting. She asked me, she said, "What do you think about the new financial reset in the new system?" And I looked at her and I said, "It's going to take a lot more than money to heal this world. It's going to take people cooperating." I'm reading a book called The Blue Planet by a guy named Rene Olson from the Netherlands, who was taken up with 500 people to a planet in Orion and lived there for 6 months on Earth. Some of the people decided to come back, but he talks about their society, and um, it's a great eye opener, and that he talked about when the world recognized and decided to explore space, everyone came together. All the technology, all the intelligence, everybody worked together to create these space platforms and spaceships and all this stuff. And this is coming towards us in the new system. So here's what the Venetians say, and I'm going to give this as a background because you mentioned about the change. What we have to do to get to become a member of the Galactic Confederation and to reestablish positive bases on the moon and Mars and other areas and asteroids throughout the system, and to become a member of the Galactic Confederation of Light, our local confederation, we must stop killing life on this planet with our technology, with the poisons that are foisted upon us by these institutionalized corporations who give us emulsifiers, dyes. Everything they're feeding us now is poison. In fact, they're focusing on putting vaccines and heavy metals, graphenes that are already in the foods, and they're destroying us from within. We have to make decisions. We have to create organic hydroponic gardens because the soil is a mess, and we have to work together. And I believe that food, shelter, and clothing should be provided for everyone. Oh, we can't support them. We can. We put billions of dollars of human energy into killing each other. We can certainly put it into making sure everyone's taken care of. So we have to have a truly representative government, democracy, or a republic. And we also have to stop the supply chains that are poisoning not only us, but other life. We're not the only life on the planet. And for that reason, this divine intervention behind the scenes is taking place. They cannot interfere with our free will. We must do it alone. This is why they are not coming out openly to us. So, truly representative government, stop killing things. We must end all wars. We have to stop participating. People who are working for these corporations, people who are working for the government, who are farmers who are taking orders from someone who's going to give them a government subsidy if they'll vaccinate their cows and put steroids in them. We have to go back to a natural, organic, and less harmful lifestyle. We have to stop destroying the planet with any weather modification technology. And we have to take out these graphene heavy metal poisons that are putting us in the air. We have to wake up to what's been going on. And at the same time, we can't have a witch hunt for anyone we think is of the dark. We have to move forward. And how this is going to happen is waits to be seen. So, in terms of my original question to you was how can people, as these things that we've talked about become realized, and the shock comes to them that people are trying to kill them, that their leaders have nothing to offer them, they call us useless eaters, and these world governments have agreed to kill their own so that they can be the elite rulers of the world with greed and power. What can the actual individual do, Alex, in helping our our friends and neighbors, like the conspiracy theorists, like you said, um, what are some suggestions you see for people who are shocked with religion and going to have to go through the understanding that the teachers were great, but we have to throw away the dogma, the religious bathwater of relying on a priest or a church. We can keep the teachings of the great teacher, but we can have to throw out the bathwater. This is going to be hard for people. How can people deal with this?
There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Number one, the first thing is to understand that we are all souls. We all come from Source. We are all attached to Source, Great Spirit, God, whatever words you use. We are all a part of the same thing. In the Andromeda's perspective, we're all royalty. To say that the Europeans and that group that they're royals, we're all royals. Okay, we're all royals. So let's end that fallacy. Number three. None of us will ever be free as long as we are reliant on a government for anything, because there is always strings attached. Because the purpose of creating a government is to have control. And here in the United States, we established a constitutional republic. It's interesting, very few people even refer to it that way anymore. They refer to it as a democracy, which is in fact mob rule. All right. That is not what the founders wanted. They wanted a constitutional republic because everybody would have the exact same freedoms. And they created a government specifically to deal with foreign affairs. That was the original intent. It's become a Goliath now, where it is propping itself up as God, like many of the royal families do. They're God, and we're the minions and the servants. That is not true of anything, or of anywhere, of any civilization. The civilization itself is to rule itself, and its job is to manage any body of authority that it creates to do a very specific function, to do just that function. That's it. They don't get to expand their power arbitrarily. It's not supposed to happen that way. In that relationship, the people will always maintain power. Everyone on this planet is going to have to relearn that lesson. They're going to have to relearn what that means to be self-evident, to be self-empowered, to totally take responsible for oneself without being manipulated by some higher authority. Okay, that's the number one thing, is to redeclare your own sovereignty and to teach that to your children and future generations. Now, as far as dealing with the disclosure, some folks are going to have a really hard time. They really are. And we're just going to have to allow them the space to vent and to fall apart, as long as they don't hurt anyone else. Those of us who are aware, it is up to us to continue to push this thing forward, to move humanity forward towards what it is that we want. And the clarification of what we want, clarification of the goals, have to be in the beginning. You don't clarify your goals at the end of the journey. You do it before, so you have a roadmap to get there. And that's a lot of what this conversation is about. These last few conversations that many people on the planet are having, exopolitics. That's one of the reasons why we brought in the ET piece, is because they have been through this. Some of these races have been through a very similar situation hundreds of thousands, millions of years ago. So they can empathize where we're at. There are ruins of vast civilizations that have completely destroyed themselves, either through weaponry, war, or they just gave up. They just flat gave up. They had no hope, and they just gave up. And now they no longer exist. Those civilizations are extinct. That is not our destiny. We are tough. We are resilient. We are very clever. We are smart. We are driven. And we are also incredibly protective of not only our families, but our loved ones. That has to expand from the heart to all of humanity. Now, this is not going to be an overnight thing. This is a generational thing. But we now here, we have to lay the foundation for those future generations to have the opportunity to do those things. We have to lay the framework. We have to help clarify what it is that we want. Okay. We have to clarify the goals. Where are we heading? And whatever mentorship we get from off world, underworld, spiritual realms, we have to collectively make this decision about what it is that we want. And I know that across the board, regardless of race, color, creed, there are some basic things we want. We want to, one, live in peace. Two, we want our children safe. Three, we want fresh water and fresh food, healthy food to eat. We want to have a clean environment, air we can breathe. And we want to know what the hell has been going on, not only in the past, okay, but current stat, what's happening now and in the future. We want to know the truth. So we can all agree with that. And that is a real solid place to start because that's something all of us can agree on, even those who don't have children, even those that are alone. They still want some of those pieces. And to not have to struggle to survive would be huge because that now affords people the ability to go within. It gives and affords people the opportunity to work on themselves on a spiritual level. Now, if you want to remain a Catholic, a Christian, a Jew, a Buddhist, whatever it is that you want to do, and you want to worship those things, you know, if that's what you're guided to do, okay, fine. But know the true history of those Catholicisms. Know where they started, why they were started, what they truly represent, so that you're not sending your energy somewhere that is not benefiting you and all of humanity. Because where energy flows, power grows. Okay? You want that power that you're sending, your power, your energy, you want that to come back to not only your loved ones, but to all of humanity. You do not want that energy going to a single source that is not bona fide, that is not benevolent. In fact, we're all supposed to become a race of leaders. And in that process of becoming a race of leaders, who you are is no longer negotiable. Okay? Who you are is no longer negotiable. And if you are who you are and you know who you are, you won't negotiate with anybody to be yourself. So they do not have power over you. That makes you a sovereign citizen. That makes you a sovereign individual. That means you can live and be true to yourself. And you can teach others to be true to themselves. No more compromise about who we are. We can be ourselves as long as we don't hurt another. That's what this is about. That's who they are. These benevolent star nations, that's who they are. When they come together to do a mission, they do it to volunteer to help others. They're not coerced or manipulated to do anything. They volunteer because they know it's the right thing to do, and they make the decision. Well, let's flip it back on Earth. Okay, the same thing. Why wouldn't we not want to help ourselves? Why would we not want to empower ourselves? Why would we not want to help all of humanity succeed and literally turn this planet into a paradise, a heaven on earth? We have the ability to do it. unconditionally and without question, we have the ability to do it. We just have to get out of our own way. And by doing that, and what I mean by getting out of our own way, we have to let all the false bullshit fall away. Just let it go. Don't allow our egos to attach to it unless it's absolute truth. And what you're going to find is that most of what we've been taught, it's not been true. It just hasn't been true. And we have to let it go. And in doing so, we free ourselves of a lot of junk, of a lot of baggage, of a lot of anger and hurt and woundedness, because we're attached to truths that what we were taught truths aren't real at all. And what happens is we can start all over again. And in renewing our strength, in renewing our vision of ourselves, we can now rebuild and create a new vision of humanity. But first, we have to define what it is that we want, and then put that into practice by focusing and moving our energy in that direction of what it is that we want. And I've already laid out those things that unequivocally everybody on the planet wants. You know, that's a human being anyway, what they want.
That's
Okay,
beautiful.
Rob.
That's beautiful, man. You know, I want to go to one thing you said. You said where energy flows, and intention is a part of that. But Fred Bell used to say, energy follows thought, and the mind is the slayer of the real. What do we want? We have to realize that we have been collectively co-creating what we're existing in. Our
Yes.
thoughts have been misdirected. And
We were convinced that this was all reality. And what we were doing is we were actually reinforcing our own prisons.
right through the desires of the material plane, desire and the accumulation of material things and the feelings of lack are based on survival mechanisms, which have been influenced and emphasized and increased by the interlopers, intrusion into the world system, and we have fallen for it. So the Venusians, and the other thing that you said was very important was the constitutional republic. This was actually the Earth, or America was a major focus point of the forces of light. And there is a hierarchy of light, just as there's a hierarchy of darkness. It has to do with frequencies and awareness. It's not about lording over someone. And the reason the ETs are here is because they recognize that we're all one being. Everyone is nature of consciousness, everyone is part and parcel of God. So they were influencing, like the woman I met was meeting, she was one of the Lefnesseurs. Some people think the Masonic Lodge is bad. It's the average Masonic member is just following a bunch of rituals in a male dominated science and mystery stuff. It's just basically a frat club. There's a lot of knowledge in there, and it has been taken over at the highest levels. It's used by the dark force to bring in the people that want ego and the secrets of all the energies and manipulations and the black magic that they do utilizing that. But back in the day, Benjamin Franklin was head of the Venus Lodge, and he was the resistance of the day, along with Thomas Jefferson. And they were influencing them. I said, what did you teach them? She said, I taught them liberty, equality, fraternity, and justice. And justice, I see it as the divine intervention of removing the unfair intrusion of these beings who literally owned the earth. And it had to happen because they had these giant wars that you talked about. And when the earth invited them in, they got a contract to own this earth for 16,000 years, and they were violating sovereignty. But these beings could blow up worlds, so they had to wait till the contract end. And I think that's what's happening with the A's, and everyone here is they. I'm sure they disagree on what the process should be, but they're all agreeing that it has to move forward. And it seems to be that they're definitely agreeing that mankind must make his own way. So if we can keep those constitutional republic, those rules of right relationship with not these onerous ordinances and laws and fines and control of your life, and let everyone, um, create a new system like buildings. You have to be a journeyman, you have to go to school, and you can't build houses unless you're going to be able to do it safely. We can educate, and we can, you know, people can be free to do what they want in their own person. At the same time, you can't harm anyone else, as you said. So I wanted to talk now a little bit about the near future, because the Venusians have asked me uh, to share this information. And I spoke with Alex some time ago when I found out about the hydrogen cloud that we're going through. Gory Good talked about it as an area of space that's causing changes in people's mind. And Greg Braden's talking about the heating of outer space. And I know there's some NASA scientists that are aware that it's not global warming. And global warming, the technologies, what you said, the HARP is a big part, of course. And we do have fossil fuels, which is toxic, but the number one was nuclear radiation. That's one of the primary poisons that has heated up the planet as well. And they definitely wanted to um, make us aware of the absolute destruction. And without the green fireballs and the Venusian and the extraterrestrial intervention, we would have already been fried and taken up. So the good guys behind the scenes destroying, the good guys behind the scenes supporting. And they want to come out, and they do want us to know the future. And as the frequencies are changing on this planet, I'm going to explain something here that Alex had told me. He says, I was talking about the heating of the atmosphere 10 years ago. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that. Dr. Frank Stranges was warning people in 1972. I believe the Venusians had pointed a scientist to look to a certain area in space, and he predicted that it would become very hot in 1972 because we are going through a 55 million mile hydrogen cloud. Now, we are also going through intense solar flares. And these solar flares, and the Venusians have made it clear, are being turbocharged by the area outside our atmosphere. Between here and the moon and between here and Pluto, it used to be absolute zero. And as Alex said 10 years ago, it's heating up. The photon belt of Sheldon Nidell and all of this stuff is coinciding. These are natural occurrences that we're going through. And this cycle, the sun sends off what are called S waves when its solar flare happens, and a CME takes place, a coronal mass ejection. And when these waves, if the Earth is facing the side of this solar flare, which are going to increase for a period here, solar minimum and maximums, they're going to cause interactions with our electromagnetic gravitation here that Alon said that your scientists don't understand. It will take down our communication systems. It could, and I speculated, they did not say this, it could cause EMP-like conditions, but it is going to cause some drastic weather changes. Now, I'm not promoting fear, I'm promoting awareness for us to come together. And if we can unite and open up our minds, our hearts, and work together to face this threat, not an alien threat, but a natural threat, to support our infrastructure. And if we become peaceful, our friends upstairs can help us more readily with technology that could see us through this harsh transition. And then the final thing I want to share, and I want, I'm just going to say it, and it's going to be a bit of a prophecy here. And again, I want to say this is not a gloom and doom prognostication. we're going to survive this in the long term. But they have told me that an asteroid is going to come between the Earth and the Moon in 2029. They have indicated that this will cause huge tidal surges. They didn't say anything or anywhere, but it will precipitate earthquakes in various locations around the world. This is a natural phenomenon. And they said, and the Queen's message that's going to be revealed at the conference, she said, your people need to come together to work on this asteroid. I don't think they can interfere with that. They could easily push it. Maybe they will. But it seems as though it's a natural occurrence. So I'm predicting that he said certain aspects of our grid, electronic grid system, will go down from these solar flares in combination with the hydrogen cloud. That has nothing to do with pushing an asteroid out. So with these challenges, I want people to see this as a challenge that's going to bring us together. When a tornado happens, a neighborhood gets together and helps everyone. When an earthquake happens, people are working together to support each other. And I'd like to use the natural changes that may be occurring for us to stop this bickering, to stop the power. It's like a nuclear bomb. It's not going to work. So could you talk about, have the A's told you anything in regards to this heating up of the hydrogen cloud that you talked about 10 years ago? And how do you feel about the solar flares that I mentioned? And any thoughts on that may kind of accelerate disclosure?
My perspective is a little bit different than yours,
Okay,
and so is some of the wording. Our sun is going through a helium conversion as we speak,
you
which
told
is
me.
why it was used to be yellow, and now it's hot white. It's just amazing.
Yeah,
What others were calling hydrogen, I was told it's plasma. And what it is that our solar system goes through a 26,000 year, a 52,000 year cycle, 12,000 years up, and then it circles back down another 12,300 years, I think. And then it begins the process of crossing the galactic plane, which is plasma, for another 12,300 years down, and then another 12,300 years up. And then we go through the plane again. Well, we are in the plane now, and that's what we're passing through. And like anything else, it's all energy, male, female. We are moving down through the galactic plane back into a feminine principle, which always brings a great deal of balance, which is not something that we've had for quite some time. And yeah, it's going to cause hot. Yes, it does trigger genetic awakening, genetic mutations. It turns on switches in all living things. That's just the nature of what it is. It's as almost as if the galaxy has its own reset buttons, you know, and that's basically what's happening is as the planet and humanity is crossing this plane, all the reset switches are starting to flip and turn back on. Not everybody's going to make it.
that's right. It's a natural
Not everybody's
occurrence.
going to make it. So, but you wish them well, you bless them on their journey. If there are people that are in your life now that walk away, you bless them from a distance. Remember, it's all energy. Everything you do, everything you think is creating a reality. So you have to be mindful um, of what it is that you're thinking, because that's what you're creating next. That's what you're drawing to you. As far as the asteroid, Rob, I didn't know anything about that. But they have the ability to deflect. They have the ability to capture it, especially if it has minerals on it that we could use on the surface. And what they could do is just pull it, put it in orbit, and just mine it and bring everything down to the surface. We already have that tech through Solar Warden. So, technologically, we're a lot further along. Just that humanity doesn't know that. So there's all these integrations on so many different levels that have to happen. And again, this is only possible because of the intervention, you know, because of the intervention. We would all have been enslaved underground somewhere, had the dark side had their way. But that's the past now. We don't have to focus on that other than to hear the truth of what was happening and move into a place of healing. And I know I should say forgiveness, but in truth, I'm not there myself, so I'm not gonna preach that yet because I'm not there. As far as I'm concerned, we should make boots out of all of them, cowboy boots out of all of them. But
I believe in justice. I believe in resting, like
yeah,
if they're,
exactly.
if they're
So, but at
continuing.
some point, we have to let that go and move forward into what it is that we want, and bring humanity with us, because what we're doing now is creating the future for future generations, and that's our responsibility as forefathers and foremothers now, is to lay that new foundation, and to begin the process of moving everybody forward, so that this becomes a history lesson, you know that everybody reads about in books, and we don't have to keep reliving the history of it you know
One of the things you mentioned, which is really interesting about that, the plane of the elliptic and the divine feminine, the Venusians have talked about the vortexes on the planet is now shifted to South America, and the divine feminine and the empowerment of women and everything, and it has to be restored. The pendulum, swings and goes, back and forth, and we have to find that center point. So
Well, Rob, have you paid attention to where the moon is rising every night?
um, I'm not that close on it, but it changes, of course, during the season here. It's moving its position. Um,
Well, it's way too far north. It's almost crossing the North Pole when it rises at night.
mhm.
It's never been that high before. It's interesting. It'll come up, but it'll set in the right place, but it's coming up almost directly over what appears to be the North Pole, and then it's settling where it's supposed to. The sun is still rising and setting where it is. So um, that would lead to the idea that the moon has changed its orbit,
Interesting.
because the Earth in relationship to the sun is exactly the same, but the moon isn't. It's definitely in a different place.
Yeah, one of the things you had mentioned was we have to know our history, and
Yeah.
the fourth dimension is time. And because we are kind of not aware of the higher dimensionality of living in the presence, um, it's so difficult to understand. But um, we have parallel lives, and everything's happening in the present. But within our little three-dimensional entropic, our mind here, it's hard to wrap our ideas around um, this concept. But this other planet that this guy went to that I mentioned, the book called Blue Planet by Renee Olson on Amazon, about 500 Earth people living 6 months on the world, and this guy wrote a diary of what took place up there and the beautiful culture and the various technologies they had. Um, he talked about they had a history temple, and the Venusians have the same thing. It's the Akashic Records. So all of this will be made available. I believe that one of the first things that are going to happen with contact after I think we're going to have to be humbled by nature. And I think the rug's going to be pulled out a little bit, as it was on a parallel Earth that destroyed itself by some stranglet and toplet bombs, where the Venusians couldn't tell anyone. It would have created fear, and they wouldn't listen anyway. But soon as the nuclear bombs, which precipitated an axial flip of the planet, which was much more devastating, they began evacuating people, and they were coming back repeatedly to the new Earth that had been born as Atlantis rose and Lemuria rose and certain areas sank. They said that the sluice gates of knowledge could be open because of hatred, the bigotry, the fear, the anger, the competition, and the greed, um, because they were, suffering. It was they were able to listen to the wise words of the Venusians, and they did help them. They were building centers using their technology, teaching them to come together in prayer to the Creator, not to any God or person or thing, but to have right relationship with each other. They taught them that they didn't like any sociological snobbery or cliques. Um, and it's a beautiful story. It's in Raymond's book called Lady Columba Venus Revelations. I wrote the introduction, and I considered that to be a warning for us that if we could listen to that, the danger um, of our thoughts and our judgment and our hatred of others. Um, we have the patriots. We don't want the borders open. And, if we change the financial system, um, and there's no taxes, and you can pay when you buy something, you pay tax to cover everything, then we can have people that want to live here, and all the people can have the abundance and prosperity in their own worlds. And I believe that new financial system that you're talking about that comes will allow the beautiful places of the world. People won't want to come here. This place is, our cities are pretty toxic. There's wonderful places that we can move forward with. So go, please. Yeah.
No, I agree with you. It's just, you were talking about being humbled by nature and other things, Rob. Um, Many of our opinions, many of our attitudes have all been learned behavior. Okay. Growing up, humanity growing up watched the extraterrestrials interact with each other and with prejudice, with bigotry, with anger, with hatred. They would have wars and they would enlist humanity to fight those wars for them. Okay. So this has all been a learned behavior. And as far as our relationship with the planet, all the indigenous people lived in total harmony with the earth. What happened was at some point over in Europe, um, everything changed. The philosophy of the planet changed. And what happened was when they began to institute a financial system, everyone became very predatory in order to survive. And what happened in that shift of becoming predatory in order to survive because of the financial system, we sort of detached ourselves from the holistic approach of living with the planet to, we have to survive. What can we take from her in order to survive? And you have to remember to look at where all that wealth was going. It was going to the top. All right. It always found its way to the top, to these groups, to these extraterrestrial hybrids. That's where all this wealth always went. And humanity found itself constantly having to struggle just to survive. So I think it's totally within everyone to very easily, after a period of time, to re-engage with nature, to see it for what it truly is, to want to live holistically with everything that's here, because that's balance. So I think we're a lot smarter than people give us credit for. I know it's there. It's just, can we let go of the fear? So many people, that's all they know. That's the only way they know how to live their life is in fear. If they had to get rid of the fear, who would they become if they didn't have to struggle? So I think the biggest challenge for humanity is the internal dialogue that they're going to have about who they are and what their life is all about. And that has to be replaced with a very positive message and hopefully, you know, information regarding who we are on a spiritual level. well, the soul groups that are here, our relationship to other star nations, all those things, because all those things are true. We're all connected in some way to each other. And then broadening one's perspective about who they are, you can let that little bullshit just fall away because now you're focusing on a bigger picture, something that illuminates who you are on the inside and restores hope and restores faith into who you truly are. And you begin the process of letting go of the fearful self and embracing the spiritual self that you are, because now you understand the big picture. And we all want to get there. We all want to get there. We all want to be whole, whole. So, I see this in a very different way, and it's never been presented as doom and gloom. I know in the early 90s when I would
Yeah.
talk, there was a lot of doom and gloom for me, but that's where I was at, and that's how I interpreted the information. And it took me a while to get past that, but in the 90s, I was starting a new family. I was getting the shit kicked out of me, because I was doing this work and talking about these things. I'd start a brand new job, be doing very well, and somebody would make a phone call to HR. And the next thing I knew, I was being walked out the door because I was one of them. I was an alien guy. They didn't want my kind there, and it was just like, wow. So, I lived all through that stuff. It was no walk in the park. And it's not going to be a walk in the park for a lot of people now as disclosure comes and they realize, wow, I've wasted most of my life with belief systems that weren't even true. And we can't let them wallow there. We have to move them through it, yes, but here's the reality. And this is who you truly are. So let's focus on embracing that and integrating who you really are so that you can create your life and move forward, not only for you, but for your siblings, your children, your grandchildren, and let's just keep moving forward. I think that's the biggest challenge for people is and there's going to be a real period of anger. People are going to be really pissed off, at how bamboozled they've been,
Yeah,
snookered, you know.
I know.
But we got to move past it. We don't have a choice. We cannot wallow in this stuff.
We can,
Uh,
I think we can begin to ignore them now because, they don't have the money. I think things are going to flip here. I believe that certain elements will allow changes. But one of the things you mentioned you know, uh, people's awareness. So some people are going to be able to achieve, you know, an easier lifestyle by keeping their thoughts focused on something, and I believe work towards something good. Don't feel, oh my God, I've lost my job. Say, thank God you lost your job making Doritos and poisons, because that's going to be outlawed as poison. Everyone can transition into, there's so many toxic foods we have. I mean, we can build hydroponic gardens. There's no need to package any food. We can get it all directly from our neighborhood Monsanto building that's been converted into a hydroponic garden from floor 85 all the way down, cranking out free food that be given
sure.
to organic heirloom. We can torch the GMOs. We can remove the plastic. All the people that are in the military can go into planting trees and cleaning up the oceans. We can have giant projects for bullet trains of electromagnetism. We can stick huge straws in the ocean to desalinate. We can create new technologies of taking water out of air. The future is very bright indeed. But
And most of this technology we already have. It's just been suppressed, you
that's
know.
but before um how can we get this out? I mean, at this point, the media, I mean, those guys are not getting paid anymore. They don't have the millions of dollars to pay some of those guys anymore. It's they are really out of money. I think they're running on organ trafficking and drugs and
Yes, the
it's,
cartels, the
yeah,
cartel money. Yeah.
that's all
Yeah,
laundered.
that's true.
That's all
That's
laundered.
true. That's exactly what they're doing, you
And some of
know.
the elite families, if they crash the economy, there goes the finances for a lot of the elite families, Vanguard, BlackRock, all of those guys. The what is it, the head of CNN or CEO retired or whatever. So there's a lot of movement behind the scenes, but they keep presenting, oh, we're going to do the digital control everything you do currency.
Not going to happen.
It's
That's
not.
not going to happen.
It's not.
No,
They don't have that ability. So
no, they don't. And there'll be no more Dorito racism either.
yeah, none of that. No more Dorito racism. Um, the we have to outlaw corn syrup, and all that stuff. I mean, I've got like a type 2
Sure.
diabetes. I can figure it out for years what was going on. So um there'll be new forms of food without vitiating the life force. Right? And they'll create nutritional drinks that will get you so
Yeah.
high. The Venusians have, they have these like smoothies and stuff. It's a very natural society, but because they do live in a paradise world, they do know their history, and it's easy. We are struggling to get our heads above the water in the clouds, and we're struggling against each other. I see a lot more circles coming together. I see a tremendous amount of young people now waking up. Some are polarizing. If they're watching, too much television, everyone says I don't want. I don't have television. I have some movies, Netflix. Like I watched Austin Powers last night. Doctor Evil and all that stuff. So I try to keep it light, and I study, and I think if people can put their attention, one of the basic things the Venusians said, I said, what should I do? Should I do pranayama? What should I do? And they said, Rob, aside from any practicing patience and kindness is going to garner you more spiritual credits. Most of us are working in jobs that amount to nothing. We are not prepared for the afterlife and the continuation of the soul of life, both happy and eternal. And they are very much not interested in our political system. They are focusing on the individual spiritual awakening to what they say is the spirit of truth is coming out now. And they quoted some things in the Bible. They said that, the old men will have dreams, the young men will have visions. And the Queen quotes a prophecy of the angels in the sky in the book of Revelations, and saying, John said, I saw an angel. And she said, you know who that angel? That angel is you. That is you serving earth humanity. We are all collectively going to be messengers of truth as we awaken and practice random acts of kindness, and step forward, and not be afraid of the ridicule, thanks to people like you pounding the way, like a linebacker clearing the way for the little halfbacks of humanity to stand upon your shoulders and many others who have been revealing the truth, including the whistleblowers and the people who have been killed for their technology. When this is all realized, people will, I think, be more conscious to move forward into community and service to each other.
Well, there've been so many people: Clifford Stone, Wendell Stevens, Bob Dean, Jordan Maxwell. Wow, we lost a good one there. I mean, they were all good and they all contributed, and there are so many others that I at the moment I'm not mentioning.
When did
You
Jordan
know,
Maxwell
all,
die?
last year.
I did not know that. I'm still
Yeah,
watching videos. Was he
yeah.
was he
He
taken
he
out?
was he was the professor,
Was
no
he
doubt about it. He was
was
the
he
professor.
was he taken out?
No, I think he was ill for a while,
Oh.
but like, he had struggled. They had stripped him of all his financial wealth and his ability to make money, and you know, they do that. They do that very well because they own the system, you know,
Hmm.
so they can do that with a switch. I saw a mime a few weeks ago, and it was of a knight, and the quote was, the mind's a battlefield, be its commander and not its soldier. And that's really, really good advice, ladies and gentlemen. Have control of your mind, what you think, what you see, what information you put into it. If it doesn't resonate to you, let it go. That which resonates with you, go with, and that will change as you continue to mature and to evolve. You will find yourself moving to different locations for that information and different paths to gather that information. And at some point, you find yourself standing on the top of a mountain and you got a complete 360-degree view. And that's when you should realize that you have finally got all the pieces you need, because now you can see the entire landscape. And now you understand that you are the commander of your own mind. And from that place, you will always remain free. And it's also important to note that if we can protect each other, we will always remain free as long as we continue to protect each other. Rob, it's been an honor and a privilege. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alex. I really appreciate your support and for coming on here today. Um,
Sure, sure. And I hope you get, 722 people at your conference.
well,
And so many people you don't know what to do, you know.
yeah. Well, we're gonna have a great show. We have some that 200-year-old Venusian from the fifth dimension who they said we want to see what a fifth dimension step down onto Earth is like, and she lowered her vibration, and they took her to Tibet. She was in a monastery in Tibet, which the Venusians are very close to. Tibet are the remnants of Lemurians from South America when they went around trying to survive from the radiation of the and the destruction. They said, well, the you know in the South America, the highlands and Tibet, we think we can survive, and so they you know they're there. So I think that if we I, I'll just say if we can come together and move forward, the world's going to be a better place. So I want to thank you for coming on, folks. I'm going to do a little epilogue here, but Alex, I want to thank you so much for coming on, and we'll talk soon. And I'll send this recording to you if you want to share it. And
Okay. Well, I'll send it to James and have him put it up on the board.
okay,
So,
God bless you.
ladies and gentlemen, those of you who follow Letters Trauma, alexcollier.org, if you're on the West Coast, go to the Shasta Conference. It's always been one of my favorites, and the place is just stunning, absolutely stunning, Mount Shasta. There's so much to do there, and it's magical. And I hate that word, but it is. It's magical. So, Rob, God bless. Thank you for being a friend, and um, I'll be talking to you soon, very soon.
I'll call you back when I'm finished here. I got maybe 4 more
Sounds
minutes.
good.
All right, thank you so
Thanks,
much.
buddy.
All right,
Take
God
care.
bless.
Bye.
All right, folks. That's the amazing Alex Collier, a very good friend, a wise, sage soul. And I think that we have a lot to learn, and we have to stop judging others, and we have to be open to new ideas. Um, we're going to see some very big changes. The Venusians has said that this year is the year of apocalypse. Everyone's like, what's the apocalypse? The apocalypse is a revelation. Revelation is happening, it's increasing every day. Everything they do is exposed. Now, we have a deep state, and they control not only the regular media, but the alt news media. Most people, though well intended, all those guys talking about this and that are very well intended, and they're angry and they're upset. But there have been no arrests made. You know, I have opinions. This is not to be associated with Alex Collier or the Venusian information, but I believe uh, Mr. Trump is dead. I believe that he was um, a player there, and he was feeling like he should control the world, you know, and that he was basically kind of greedy. I think his ethics with women, his book Winning, he likes to get people back. He's into vengeance, and you know, the Kennedys, Robert Kennedy Sr., he may be a possible good guy, but he's been saying some things. The Kennedys were drug runners of the day. They were an elite family. They were members of the inner circle of control. And John Kennedy, um, he did meet with um, a valiant Thor. I think he had good intentions. Um, you know, I think, he wasn't a great, it wasn't ethical. He was an adulterer. He wasn't necessarily a nice guy. When you get in these levels of power, that's what they do. You know, he definitely was assassinated, and Bush was organizing it, Bush the Nazi, and I have evidence on that. But and Lyndon Johnson was involved in it, and I can tell you that it's not going to happen the way you think. And the Venusians did tell me it's going to get worse before it's get better, and I'm not trying to prognosticate. It's going to become challenging, and we're going to have to. People in the military are going to have to stop taking orders from these people. I don't think they have money to create a war anyway. They may try to get something going in China. Uh, um, I'm not sure what's going to happen. No one knows the future exactly, and that's kept from us. But anything that happens is a challenge for us to see something good in. You know, many years ago, there was something called the Syrian shift 18 million years ago, and they were doing genetic and altering. And that's what they're trying to do here, a transhumanist agenda. So the Venusians say it's always good to speak the truth and be kind, because people can be won over even if they're hostile to the information that you're sharing. And I know a lot of my information is controversial, but my information is not channeled. My information comes directly from the Venusians. It's transcribed literally word for word. So if you look at my website, you can check it up. I have a blog called The Victory of Light. I have lots of blogs. If you go back, you're going to see some stuff. So Omnik went to Tibet, and she goes, "It's not so bad here." She was dancing around there, and then eventually she came to fulfill a karmic relationship with a woman who died for her in the French Revolution, a twin sister, and live a life out on Earth. And she wrote a trilogy of books, From Venus I Came, that talks about her descent and installation in Earth society and life on the fifth dimension. And she talks about the second book is Angels Don't Cry, about her life and the horrible things she witnessed in her viewpoint. She went through a lot of suffering, but she's come out and she's very beautiful. She's very loving. She holds a very special presence. So she'll be speaking 3 times, and you can ask her any questions. She's absolutely adorable. We have some great workshops with Ismail, Vivian Chavez, Arcturus Ra. Raymond Keller is giving away a free book. Um, Victoria Lozenquist is doing a workshop, and I shouldn't forget anyone, but there's a lot of great things going to be at my conference, thepromiserevealed.net. Click on that, look at the blogs, and get your place to stay. It is solstice, but there's always camping, lots of Airbnbs you can share. And if you go to Facebook page called Mount Shasta Summer Conference. I have a Robert Potter public page. I have a Mount Shasta Summer Conference. And that page has pinned posts where you can connect with people for ride shares, room shares. I'm not responsible, so make sure you get along and have a Zoom with someone. But we'll see you this summer, and keep an eye. I've got Ismail Perez coming up later in the week. I'm doing Dan Winter, Vivian Chauvet, and I got some great speakers coming up before the conference. So keep in tune, and I want to thank you all for listening here. And I'm of anything, I'm not a charlatan, and I'm speaking the truth of my experiences. So I hope that you all will consider my information, take it as real. If it's too much for you, like Alex said, just let it go. But um, I am meeting and working directly with Venusians and Pleiadians. I have been my whole life. I'm not as high level as other contactees. Everyone has a little position to play. And mine is to reiterate that things are going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. The cloud ships and the beings inside them are here, and they're never going to fail us. The light of God never fails. And despite the challenges that we face, we're going to get through this. And we'll talk about evacuation maybe in my next talk, my next show. I might do something on my own. All right. It's been a long time. I know you want to go. All right. So, all right. Thank you very much. Bye.